Hey everybody, my name is Mark Abrams. Thanks for joining us for another stay-at-home webinar on Puremix.net. Today I am joined by the one and only Luca Pretolesi. How are you doing, Luca?
Yes, doing
Yes,
good, Mark.
awesome.
Good, good to be with you guys.
Yeah, so you're coming to us from Las Vegas, right?
Yeah. I was actually talking a few days ago that I was supposed to be in New York in March. Um, all the craziness happened and everything, but yeah,
Yeah,
in Vegas.
yeah, crazy. How's Vegas right now?
Actually, not bad. Like we don't have a much like density of population. We are spread through the valley. It's
Yeah,
kind of sad when you drive across Las Vegas Boulevard and everything's off, but we're
right.
getting ready. A couple of more
Yeah,
weeks, and
yep, yeah, awesome. So, where are we at right now? Where?
so this is Studio I inside of Studio DMI. Studio
Mhm.
DMI is our building, and we have Studio DMI. This is Studio I. That's where I do my mixing and mastering every day. Um, that's kind of I spend more time in this room than any other place in the world. So
Yeah.
especially now, I just live here, so I'm here all the time.
Right, right. Not a bad place to be. That's a beautiful studio.
Not too bad, and plus I'm 3 minutes away from my house, so I literally drive from my garage, get into the studio,
Yeah,
and totally
yeah,
detached from the world. And I love to keep the routine. I think through this time, I strongly recommend to be very straight, create your own routine and stay on top of that because you risk to
right.
get lost.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's see. So, a couple things. You guys just built that facility recently, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
less than 1 year. That's a
Hmm.
kind was on a final destination. We went through different studios across the city for a few years, and then we built this thing, and it's for life. So we're
Yeah.
really happy about the location.
Awesome. That's cool. Well, something else that we have going on with you right now, there is a mixing contest happening
Yeah.
with your Major Laser video that we shot a couple years back. We
Right.
dug out the stems for that, and there's a mixing contest happening where people can win Modula from Quantica.
Yeah, that plugins, but so exciting because the song is so important for me for my career, and also it was my first relationship started with Puremix with that mix.
Yeah.
I'm getting so many requests. Actually, when I went through the contest and then checked the mixes, such a good mixes. Like it's
Yeah.
very impressive. So the bar is really high right now.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, we got several hundred mixes submitted, and if you guys haven't joined that yet, go check it out at the mixing contest page on the site. So, yeah, let's do a little bit of a background on you for anybody who doesn't know, though it's
Right.
hard to see who that would be at this point. But um,
Yeah.
tell us how you got started.
Yeah, so I'm on this. I actually always say that I never had a job in my life beside music. So
Yeah.
I only did music for my entire life. I have a formal education, so I did 3 years of recording and mixing school when I was 17 years old.
Hmm.
I didn't use much at the beginning. I said, well, okay, I learned this, like, but I really need it. Yes, I do. And then through my career, I had started as an artist in Italy as a producer. But my dream on my second life is like I want to be a full time mix and master engineer.
Mm.
That's kind of what happened through time in a very organic way. I was mixing my own music, and everybody said, "Wow, your production sounds really, really good," because I was mixing and mastering
Yeah.
my work.
Yeah.
Then through time, to start to help other people, and then getting older, I found a place of my career where I want to be backstage. I want to help everybody with my knowledge, and also have an understanding on electronic music and dance music. I think I can connect with them, and then I can be an extension of whatever they need to complete a record. That's why I consider myself. I have an hybrid approach. I think I'm a mixing and master engineer with a production vision. Like if
Mm.
I need to do a 2% on the record or 50%, I'll do regardless because I want to. I go for it. My goal is take the best possible version of the song.
Yeah.
So I moved to Vegas in 2002
Mm.
for a non-strategic reason. It was not like the capital of dance music at all back then. It was
Right.
just like a place kind of slow where every trend was coming here very, very late. But then something happened where 2008, 2009, dance music started to get into this town. And I became very good friend with a lot of today superstar that back then was just like buddies. And my thing was like, man, I think I can help you. Like, you do good music, they don't necessarily sounds good. So I say, maybe you can do that. And then I start helping a lot of producers that became good friends, like Diplo or Steve Aoki, others, that back then was just like this explosion of dance music in Europe. And in America, they tried to catch up, but there was just like a gap as far as the quality. In
Mm-hmm.
Europe, we have this culture where when you produce, you do everything by yourself. And then eventually the label will send to a mixing engineer, a master
Mm.
engineer, but you try to take your song till the final destination. In America, it was a little bit new, this concept, especially on dance music. And my approach was just like focusing on quality and try to be a borderline between creative and technical, to take every song was getting my way and take it, elevate it to the next level.
Right.
And my first big record was the first album of Steve Aoki that we had a Grammy nomination back then.
Yeah.
From there, Diplo's like, why Steve Aoki record sounds that good? What's going on here? And
Yeah.
then I started working with him, and we did the first Major Lazer album.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, now I'm doing about 300 mix a year. As a company, we do about 600 between myself, Scott, and Andy,
Yeah.
and it's a blast. I mean, I do
Yeah.
what I really love, what it comes natural to me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Cool. Thanks for the backstory. Well, so we have some pretty cool stuff planned today. You brought along a session,
Yes,
and what is the
yeah.
session? Yeah.
So the idea is, so actually, you guys triggered idea. Say, what about if we check like how you use your DAW? Why you pick Studio One,
Mm-hmm.
and what's your spin? So I'm not going to make a tutorial about tip and trick on Studio One,
Right.
but what I like to do is just share a little bit about my approach, how I use my DAW, how I drive my car every day, and what is my go-to. What is the first thing when I get into my car I push, and what I do. Um, and I do almost like now without even thinking. It's going to be kind of complicated to say, yeah, I do this, and I click Apple Shift. I do
Right.
almost like without thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to share a little bit about that. And I brought a song that is a stem mix. So I don't pretend in an hour to be able to do a full mix. So I just want to go over a little bit about how I use my DAW, what I find is kind of special to me after being 16 years on Logic till 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and then maybe get some question, and
Yeah.
see anything that I can share with everybody. For the purpose of today video, you guys are not going to see what I have in front of me. I have a kind of sophisticated, good-looking console that I'm not going to use. We just focus in the box. And we're going to talk about a little bit about my routing, but I want to focus a little bit about sorts of techniques and just fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, let's. Why don't we dive right into it? So
Let's try
we can
this.
get in.
Let's do it.
Cool.
That's exciting. All right.
Awesome. All right. Let me get you pulled over here.
Yeah. So I have my headphone here. So I use the Focal Clear for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I always try to do when I listen on speakers and I put the headphone on, I try to match my level. I don't
Mm.
want to get louder on headphones, or I
Right.
don't want to get louder on speakers. I try to translate in a way that the way I can explain it, I'm able to talk to you, Mark, through the iMac Pro speakers in the back, listen to your voice through that, and
Right.
still be able to mix on headphones. This is a sign of like more natural, space. You are
Mm.
on an airplane, and you have headphones, but you can have a conversation. So
Right.
that's
Right.
the way I
Right.
approach my headphone setup.
Very cool.
Um, cool.
Before
So
you dive into that,
yeah,
I do want to touch on one thing real quick, just related to the current situation that everybody's in, and the fact that we're able to do this together. And I'm going to hear your mix in stunning quality and all of that while I'm seeing how you're
amazing
working.
for
Uh,
me.
you're doing this every day with clients around the world, and you have been for a long time.
Mark, that became the new normal. Like in the
Yeah.
past, I always like was like a little bit on the remote side, working a lot with Asia, other market. But now I actually enjoy the process. So
Mm.
I work. I use Audio Movers, which is a plugin that I put on my DAW. I'm able to stream 44, 32-bit. I mean, it's a dream. And also, I did a little bit of like a more sophisticated setup where the Audio Movers is capturing not directly from the DAW, but from my console.
Mm.
So on my console, when I put mono or mid and side, or I switch between rough and reference, the client can hear through my console what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of remote sessions, and I use Zoom for video and Audio Movers for audio,
Hmm.
and it's good. And it's what I do usually, different than before being in the same room. I try to host the conversation, give like priority, say, all right, let's dive into this. Now let's go over this. Let's go over this. So, and usually in about an hour, we're able to close the mix at the end after my work. So yeah,
Right.
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I find it, it's a very inspiring thing. I hope for a lot of people too to just see like, we're used to possibly working in studios, not working out of our homes, and here
Yeah.
you are, you're mixing with headphones, you're showing us your screen, and we're hearing everything in a great way.
It's
So,
great. Also, I
yeah.
can give like a lot of producer, they're my client, they're capitalizing on this moment, try to work on more music. They're
Hmm.
not on the road, so they can spend more time, pay more attention on the production quality, knowing
Hmm.
that at one point they're gonna be on the road. So now it's time to make music. And don't think about limitation. Think about capitalize on whatever you have. So be at home with a
Yeah.
laptop, that's great. That's not a problem.
Right.
We have a fast internet now and amazing plugin. So what is the
Right.
point?
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Well, let's dig in. Let's do it.
Let's go. So, well, if you watch my template on Puremix, you get an idea about kind of my settings, and it's been the same now for many years, which is I bring my stems on top, and I color code my stems equal to my buzzing, and that makes very visual and easy to follow. I don't really read what is on the stem. I just go by color. I know the purple is bass, and the blue is it's synth, and the pink is vocal. So
Mm.
I run that through my buzzing system. That's very easy. Studio One brought something cool. I mean, I was on Logic missing some of those cool things. One is the way I start my mix. This is the way my assistant prep every mix. And then from that point on, I decide if you want to go hybrid, full in the box, out of analog. And I decide this from my buzzing side. But something always the same is the flow of the stems and my markers in arrangement
Mm.
organization. The
Yeah.
markers, they're cool because I don't want to know the song too much. If I get attached to the song, I lose objectivity. So I just
Mm.
need to be fresh to the song. And I know that something is called verse two, it's a verse two. So, and chorus is chorus. So I follow the arrangement to guide through that. Studio One is a really easy way to do it, where essentially uh, I have in one window without open multiple windows, a little
Hmm.
bit of story of my song, including things that I don't really want to see. Maybe at the beginning of my work, I don't care to see effects and vocal, and I'll take
Hmm.
away from the session.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're not playing. They're playing. It's just I don't want to see it.
Right.
So, and that's kind of the beginning of my organization. So let's play some music in the meantime.
Grows when something grows in us. We feel
Yeah.
the
So that's a great song from my friend Max Styler. It's called Back to Me. Um, Max is a great producer, and my job on this is like refinement. Stem mixing, to me, different than a full mix. It's about to take what it is and keep going. Necessarily keep going doesn't mean reinvent everything, put the fader down. It means like, okay, I want to be objective. What I can do to improve. Song very streamlined, 17 stems. I always try to have a clear separation between my percussions. So I have my kick, my low percussion, which is claps, snares, and the hats, which is high percussion. So all that run through my buzzing system. So first thing is about for me reference. So how I A and B with other tracks. So with Studio One, I have options that I can get the same result easily without a DAW. One is to literally drag the rough and reference on the session, put at the end, and be able to solo. Look how cool is this. So let's play the rough. Let's play the reference. Let's go back to the mix. So essentially, with no latency, just clicking, not on the mute and solo, but clicking on the channel, I swip between different sources, which is pretty cool. In case you visually you want to see, your reference track versus your rough mix versus the breakdown of the mix. That's cool. So when I work on a hybrid setup, I do this, but instead of writing to the main output, I write to my console and I switch rough and reference to the console. Again, for the purpose. Now, if you're sitting with the laptop on your living room, that's a really good way. Like you just go and solo like this. It's really cool. Option number 2 to me, and by the way, with Studio One, you have a main solo. You can take it off. Boom. Another option that to me, a little more sophisticated, but also give you more option, is to put on the master out the matrix A and B. So cool things about the matrix A and B is this. So I'm running the source of my full mix, and I'm able to A and B with a bunch of different reference. And I'm able to do it in this way, we matching the loudness. So it's automatically lowering my reference track according to my mix. So the cool things about this, when I start to push my mix, I start to use limiting, all my reference will go up. So let's check that. I did this already before. So as you can see, is put, and first of all, is following my session. So I'm going to the drop, and now my reference is moving. That's my mix on Diplo on my mind. Love this mix. Nice. I don't want to brag about it. I just want to say it. Like.
Yeah.
so it's moving, right? So this means it gives me a sense of arrangement-wise reference, which is cool if you think from the producer point of view. So do that against the rough, against your reference. Another cool things about this is the spectral analyzer. So let's say I want to see my track, my mix against on my mind. Now I see both. What about dynamic range? Now I see the very master loud dynamic range of Diplo on my mind, which is squash, how do we say here? Very like dynamic rough. So very, very cool. So I tend to use, when I'm traveling, I like to use this a lot because it's so easy. And also I'm able to store presets. And let's say I'm mixing reggaeton. Now I have like 15 reggaeton reference track.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. So to me, like I go between this and between dragging the track on the session if I work on the analog domain. As far as the organization, that's what I do. As far as metering, and then we're going to dive into the session, I use multi-analyzer. And then if you follow a little bit my other classes, you saw that. The cool things about the multi-analyzer, let me make bigger. There is a benefit of this. So that's the mix. That's my reference track. But what about level-wise? I want to make sure that I'm not tricked by loudness. So my reference is actually a little bit lower. So, it gives me this sense of information. What about the stereo field? Well, my reference is a little bit wider. So it's really cool. What about the waveform? So that's my rough, very dynamic, a lot of peaks. My reference is push, is square. So I like to use this a lot. And I like to use sometimes when I go into very technical parts, for example, lead vocal against background vocal, I want to see a placement that if I start to don't trust my ears anymore because I'm getting tired end of the day, I'm going to trust my eyes.
Right.
So that's a little bit about my organization. As far as things that I do with Studio One as a kind of like go-to way when I start actually mixing, before I start to treat my stereo bus, which is my first things that I do, I want to gain stage. When I have a good balanced mix like this, what I really care about is how loud I want to hit my stereo bus to always stay on the same sweet spot. And to me, I want to stay 0 dB VU minus 18 full scale if I work on the analog domain. If I work in the box, I can go a little louder. The cool thing is, instead of lowering individual stems, that's kind of annoying because in case I need to replace a stem, because now the singer has a different vocal takes, I need to go back and gauge stage any stems. with Studio One, especially with 4.6, you can highlight. Let's say I want to take all my track in one time, um, highlight it. There is a gain input here that I can literally in one move push or cut
Hmm.
the entire session. So this is pre-plugin, pre-insert. So if I do that, what is the main benefit? Then at one point, if a producer say, "Hey man, let me send you a new kick," I don't care about how loud was into my session as far as the take. I just will follow my gain staging on my mixing part. And I find this very, very useful, very cool. When I work on the analog domain, and let me open my return from my desk. Um, so if I work on analog domain, what I do here, okay, on the stereo bus, I'm able to gain stage my return from the console. So if I'm getting too low or too loud, which is super cool, I'm able from Studio One to lower my input coming back from my desk. So that's why a feature that I really, really use and I like it. All right, so let's say I start my mix, and usually the question is where you start your mix on the loudness part of the track. So that usually I call drop and or chorus. So that can be this, the start of my mix, or this. In this case, this more information. What I do, I make sure that my waveform on my session, it's big enough to recognize if there's any material there, but it's not squashed to the point that I don't see transient. So,
Right.
and this is my normal visual aspect of my tracks, where I see what's going on really quick, and I can navigate through my session. I use something. Let me put this in front of the camera. I use Stream Deck on Studio One. Let's see if I can show you guys. So, Stream Deck, it's a
Yes.
really cool little gadget. And if you look, I put my main shortcuts.
Let me make that bigger. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So everybody can see that.
guys, follow those shortcuts. So why I do that? Because I want to, every time I make one of those actions, it's easier to have something solid that I can push instead of do it with a keyboard. No, so it's an habit. It's something that I do. So I want to turn loop on and off. You see on my session, loop on and off has been turned here, and I do loop on and off. I can open and close the mixer, especially when I have a big mixer. So, and I do that. I like to do undo through that. I do the save. I do the zoom selection when I'm into the track. So I love it. And
can I interject there for a second? This is a fun thing that came up yesterday. We had Andrew Sheps on, and it got rated by a bunch of his friends, and we went down this dark rabbit hole all about Stream Decks and macros and everything.
Right.
And I wanted to point out that Stream Deck also has an app for mobile devices too. So this
I know. So cool.
Yeah, so I'm running like all of my macros just for like general stuff, like if I'm launching Pro Tools and stuff, and then I have another profile here that's set up for Pro Tools shortcuts and all that.
I love it. And
really
Mark,
fun.
I do the same where, Stream Deck follow you. So when you get out of Studio One and I jump really quick on Zoom, now my Stream Deck has become my Zoom controller.
I love awesome. It. Yeah, it's so good.
It's the coolest one. Actually, I'm contemplating to buy a second one to put on the other side and have different purpose, different things that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's
I love
great.
it. And the fact that you can share your settings, this means you can go on a laptop and always have the same settings. It's a fantastic tool. I love it.
Yeah, definitely check it out, everybody. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna make your. Hey, real quick, I'm getting a message from some people that it's a little hard to read the screen. So, do you mind if we try playing with the setting real quick, and if it doesn't work, we'll move on?
Do you want to make change the resolution?
Yeah. We'll
All right.
see. It might be like a little less comfortable for you, but let's see if it makes
That's
it
all right.
better for people watching.
What about this?
That's a little bit better. Let's
It's bigger.
what if you do one more? Does that mess you up?
One more? All right, let's
Yeah.
try that. I'm not going to see much myself, but it's okay.
Right.
It's all right. What about
Okay,
this?
does that mess you up?
No, it's okay. We can go. I'll be a little slower, but it's all right. No problem.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank
It's
you.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go with that. And if it drives you nuts, go ahead and switch it back a level.
Yeah, no,
And
it's all. It's all right. Yeah,
cool.
what I'm going to show, it will work anyway. So
Cool. Cool.
awesome. So, again, I arrange my song even if I'm not going to produce or change the arrangement. Just visualizing the song in this way, especially color coding different parts with the same color. It'll help me to just navigate through quicker. When
Mhm.
when I'm not on the mixing stage, I might do that and do this, where I still have the channel access, but because I'm not mixing, I don't need to have too many information on my mixer. So I make those smaller um, and work more on the stems. So do that.
They may not understand, they may not know it more, 'cause it hurts today. When did we lose ourselves? It's clear to see that this love has changed. Ways out, you're becoming what we didn't be. Let's agree to disagree. Ways out, if you love me, then you'll set me free. So I can get back to me. So I can get back to
Do
me. I can get back to me. Back to me. So I can get back to me. Back to me. We chose to go to bed.
I'll do what I usually do, start my mix. So I do my stereo bus treatment. This case, extremely light. I'm not going crazy because I'm not doing a full mix, which is, this means that I have already dynamics that's being dictated by the actual production. So I'm not going to reinvent everything, but I want to do enough enhancement that allow me to start the mix close to the final destination of the mix, where I want to go, where I want to take the mix. I like to have a clear vision in the beginning, minimize very small decision, maximize one bigger decision,
Mm.
and just go into that. So you probably saw this many times, but because it's a webinar, it's for people that maybe don't know my techniques. I want to share my mid-range compression.
Great.
I should do that,
Yeah,
Mark. All right,
absolutely.
cool. So mid-range compression, very different than multi-band compression. A lot of people say, well, just use a multi-band and just pick a band and compress the mid-range. No, because a multi-band, I have a crossover point. So I'm cutting my material in different
Mm.
parts. I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to essentially say, hey, mid-range, feel the compression, feel the dynamics and compress. Hey, low end, the top end, don't worry about compression. So usually what I do, I use Pro C when I'm in the box. I use the dangerous compressor when I'm in hardware, and I
Mm.
literally do the same thing. On the analog, I use an external EQ to do that. When I'm on Pro C, I use the internal EQ. Very
Mm.
simple. Um, so first things that I do, I going to listen what the detector is about to listen, which is I want to decide what the detector, what compression, what part of the spectrum I want to compress. So that's my curve of compression. So basically, I'm telling, yeah, don't get rid of it entirely low end, but from 180 down, based on the key of the track, based on the style, there is always an aesthetic about the mix. Like a trap song will be different, like a pop song will be different. But for house music, I'd say in a gentle way, from 180 down, stay away from compression. From
Mm.
6K and up, stay away from compression. Enhance compression on the mid range. So when I feel that that's the space I want to compress, then I go into compression. So I take off my audition and I start to listen just compression alone. First things that I do, I probably go for mastering setting or clean, just
Mm-hmm.
because mastering is more like a leveler And I go probably for medium slow attack, medium slow release, because I'm not looking for pumping or have any source of movement. I just want to get squeeze a little bit the dynamics on the mid range. Take the average RMS level versus the peak, called crest factor, and just on that area, just do this little bit. Bring to the surface everything. Bring in front of me vocal, piano, synth, all that. I do an aggressive 560 dB compression because that's going to be just based on mid-range and going to blend in dry signal, mid and side information. So when I think I'm close to that, I'm looking for the knee. I don't want to have our knee that snap constantly. I don't want to have soft knee that takes away the life of the mid-range. So I try to find something in the middle of that. In this case, soft knee works much better. Yeah, between 5 and 6 dB. Now I'm going to listen to the entire material. Gain staging. I don't like to use auto gain, so manually I'm going to push 6 dB. Now, my point is this. If I squeeze too much mid-range, I risk to make my reverb flat because all the reverb, everything out of phase on the mid-range will come to the surface. So what I do, I reduce the level of my side about being 70-30. This means I want to have 70% dry, 70% mid, and 30% side as far as compression. So I want to compress less the side, more the mid. Now the track will lose a lot of stereo information, so I bring the stereo information back dry. So my dry will have more side, less mid. So I do this effect where I have more mid compression in the center and more side, no compressed sound on the way out. One thing is always like I find very kind of weird and funny that how perceived loudness works. If you keep looking the meter, the stereo bus meter, look when I go on and off between compression and no compression, the meter will go up tiny bit, maybe less than a dB, but you will perceive 3 or 4 dB. So check it out. It's mid-range information. So usually I do that. I work on oversampling. I trust the 2 times. Now, that's my mid-range compression. If I want to try a different setting really quick on Studio One, I click copy, so remain on my memory, and I try a different setting. That can be a little bit more snappier. Let's try that. Maybe a little bit more side compression. Yeah, I like better. So, and that's my first stage of compression. My second stage of compression, usually it's groove and movement. If I'm on an analog domain, I have an SSL bus compressor on my console. If I'm in the box, currently like to use the SSL native SSL, which is a very clean version of the SSL bus compressor. Let's try that. The way to me to find the right compression is to exaggerate compression in order to find the movement and the groove, and then do a step back. like it a little bit more aggressive, and maybe do parallel tiny bit. Okay, before, after the technical compression and the creative compression. Actually, we can easily do it going this. And if we look a little bit dynamic-wise, oh, well, the rough was already squashed because of the demo, but let's check the spectrum. So that's kind of like my initial stage is compression. Then usually after compression, I'm going to stop thinking about compression. To me, it's going to be the translation of my mix. I don't care. That's what I decide to do. The second one is the tone. Okay, how my track has to sound. What is the aesthetic of the track? It needs to be like bright, open, with a lot of details on the top. Instead of going crazy and make many changes through the mix to bring the top end up and find myself with 15 channel that have the typical EQ like this, everyone, what about if I do once? And in one time, what I'm doing, I'm enhancing transient on the vocal, hats, everything happening on the 10K and up. When you say, well, but you're pushing 50K, the 50K, it's the top, and it's a shelf. This is going down, down, down to 7, and you're bringing a little bit of everything coming up. And obviously, we are not dogs or horse or dolphins, so you're not going to hear over 20K anyway, actually over 15. Actually, me and you, Mark, you're younger than me. You might be able to hear a little bit of 17, 18K.
Right.
So I do a little bit of the top, and I usually like to enhance a little bit the bottom. And think about it, because we didn't compress the bottom and the top, will sounds way more natural. Because now, if this area, it's literally uncompressed or technically uncompressed at this area, when I'm pushing top and bottom, I'm bringing dynamics up. I'm not squashing something that's being overcompressed. Now, because I compress the mid-range, if I push 10 dB of mid-range, let's say I'll do the normal color EQ curve, which is 400 to 12K. That part that is bringing up, we're not going to enhance jumping of dynamics because it's being compressed. We're going to literally level up the mid-range based on my taste. We gain a little bit of level, so let's gain stage it. Let's pull down a little bit the output level of the color EQ. There you go. This is a little bit about the start of my mix. And what I do this, if I'm on an analog domain, on the digital domain, I do the same. I use different tools with the same purpose. And I tend to do it, close it, and never reopen. That's it. That's done. That's the sound of this become the sound of my console, the sound of my DAW. I just mix through that. Right. Main benefit is I'm going to do less individual tweaking, doing one big tweak at the beginning.
Awesome. Yeah, and now you have the tone kind of baked in. Right. Awesome. That's probably a massive time saver too, right? As you're going through, you're not having to.
It is, and also retain my signature sound. When people say, "Hey, do you have a sound? Can you describe how you can describe your sound?" I can describe my sound, which is the beginning of my mix. The way I can describe my sound is I want to have a very in front of the mix mid-range. I want to have a very detailed top end and dynamic or perceived dynamic bottom end. So that's describe my sound, and that it's made by the way I treat my stereo bus. And when I go through a Spotify playlist with like 200 songs that I mix, I find that even if different producer, different style, I find like my treatment on the stereo bus will affect every song kind of in a similar way.
Right, right. Awesome. That's a huge thing that comes up on these all the time, and I'm a broken record with this because every time I always like point out when somebody says something like this, but that is the difference between just tweaking knobs and then having intention when you walk in and knowing what you're going after versus just like, let me turn this until I think it sounds good.
Yeah, and Mark, can I take an opportunity to share something that it took me, I mean, 12 more, maybe 50 years to learn.
Yeah.
So stop doing this. Check it out. You're working on a mix, and you start to go and say, uh, I
Mm.
don't know. Oh yeah, maybe this. No. Oh, maybe this.
Mm-hmm.
No, guys. What I recommend is build your mix in your head. So make an executive decision. Don't go trial and error when you're working. It's kind of like imagine you play like a soccer and you are in front and say, "What I should do? Should go this way, this way." No, just go for it. So pick your tools.
Yeah.
I limit myself. I
Mm.
decide that my only tools, my only digital compressor are four. Done. That's it. I have 1,000, but I just pick those.
Yeah.
I pick my delay. I pick my imager,
Mm.
my reverb, my channel strip. I limit myself on my tools, and usually, rarely, I go and I start to try ideas. I just
Yeah.
execute.
Right. Right. Very cool. The browser that you were just showing, let's do a little Studio One chatter for a second.
Yeah.
Um, are these plugins that like have you uninstalled things from your system, or you made these folders so that you had them all
Right.
organized in a spot?
Studio One it give you a lot of options. One
Mm-hmm.
goes by vendor. So you click
Mm-hmm.
on vendor and you have your plugin, break it down by the company that made the plugin.
Mm-hmm.
Then you create your own folders. And I create my own folders and I put numbers that allow me to have a
Mm.
flow and an order. So on my folders, I put in literally what I must use as a first option,
Yeah.
and I always stick to that. And I have order, and I know where I'm going. And like I mentioned before, I don't even know sometimes when I'm opening. Like my brain just took me there.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my utilities plugin, stuff that I use for phasing issues or streaming, my de-esser. So I create this. I love it. And then you can
Mm.
go into Studio One and optimize even more, where you literally get rid of everything, you leave what you need. I
Mm.
only install EU in my case. I don't want to have any duplicates. And I pick and I update my folders every few months on things that I'm using more, using less. And it's very useful.
That's great. Yeah, it just kind of helps you continue to move at the speed of creativity instead of like fishing through menus and all that stuff. Just
Right.
keep your
I'm
workflow
actually doing
enhancement.
what I'm doing on the console in front of me. I
Mm.
have those pieces of gear. I'm not constantly take it out, take it off, plug it
Yeah.
in. That's what I pick. That's my sound translate from. And I do with plugin in literally the same way.
Yeah, that's great. Do you, when you're working, let's say you get a vocal in, do you have a workflow that you just go through right from the start for
Yeah.
something like that?
So in this case, I have a process vocal, but for the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of this conversation with
Explanation.
you, we can
Mm-hmm.
go over some ideas.
Yeah.
Usually, what I do, I duplicate in Studio One my vocal,
Mm-hmm.
boom, and then I keep one intact as a sidechain trigger
Mm.
for everything that I do. So if I use reverb, if I use delay, if I use parallel compression, I use an untreated vocal for the simple purpose that if I overcompress a vocal and I run into a reverb, the reverb will sound kind of flat.
Mm.
So I use
Mm.
one, and that's become my dry. Let's say that's totally unprocessed,
Mm-hmm.
and there's going to be my wet. And then Studio One has a super cool feature, which is this. I don't actually know any other plugin that DAW that lets you do that. I'm going to share it. So I want to throw a reverb as a send, not as an insert. Instead of creating the send, the aux, you're taking, let's say, your reverb, you throw on the send,
Mm-hmm.
and it's creating the send for you. How sick
Amazing.
is that?
Yeah.
So cool. So it's creating that, is naming for you, and it's creating the scent. So put on this on the dry.
Wow.
So I can get back to me. I can get back to me. Back to me. Back.
So that's super cool. So usually I do that. I tends to do something, again, the Studio One make it so easy, which is whatever you're touching on Studio One, whatever you're touching, you do Option A, and you can convert on automation. So whatever I'm doing. So let's say that I'm touching my send, Option A, and now I have my send automation, and then I can create my my automation on Reverb.
Back to me. So I can get back to me.
And the Option A is super nice because it gives you a sense of like whatever you're doing. Let's say now I'm on the actual reverb, and let's go on a part that's, let me turn automations. And I feel it's like, oh, what about if I do something cool where it goes small room, big room? I can just touch here, Option A, and then now on my effects, I can automate my decay. So it's so easy.
Very fast. Yeah.
Super fast. The same, obviously, the same concept of drag and drop you can apply on everything. So now, let's say I want to compress my vocal. I literally drag. I take the plugin that I pick and I drag into the track. That's it, and then
it's
open
up
the
on the
plugin.
insert. Yeah.
Yeah, I just drag into the track and put on my inserts. Now, what I like to do, again, squeezing Studio One features, is this. Let's say I want to do a more creative parallel compression. Studio One to give you this way to get into the back end of the DAW, where essentially I'm creating. I can split. So if you get lost, Mark, tell me. I'm gonna repeat
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
essentially into the insert. Now I'm gonna go in the back of the insert, and I'm creating splits. So let's say I do 4 splits. I want to do parallel number 1 is a compressor. Great. Well, I may want to do 2 type of compressor. What about if I do a distressor? And check it out. I'm doing drag and drop into the back of the DAW. Crazy is that?
Yeah.
And then I want to do, because we're doing creative stuff, I want to parallel like a reverb too. So now this, I have 4 levels of my 4 parallel. One is empty, and then I say, well, I just also want to make sure that I gain stage properly, right? So I go my recent stuff. There's something. What am I going to use to gain stage? Well, what about if I compress? I take on my recent stuff and put here. So now what I'm doing, I'm splitting compressor, not a compressor, a reverb, and a compressor again. I can be able to click here and open it.
Get back to me. Back to me.
Now, when I'm in, I'm able to do a lot of cool things. One, level individual parallel. Color coded. Let's say those are compressor. Guys, it's so cool. So I use this a lot. You can even automate individual ones. So
Awesome.
it's like endless thing. So I use this a lot, and I have my go-to presets that I do. That instead of like taking 20 minutes to build one, I have my go-to for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's on vocal.
Wow,
a
that's
little bit.
cool. And then they all show up in the insert slots there.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
They do. They do. Same approach about drag and drop. I'll do it in a different way. So now we are on the channel. Let's say that I want to take my percussion and I want to really quick. I'm fine to have let's say I have 15 of those, to have my clap and my snare going to the low percussion. But now I want to take my clap, do a duplicate, do maybe left and right when I do a little bit of sample delay, which is on this side, and I take the left, I take the right, I do about 20 milliseconds. It's something that I like to do a lot. So I'll do that. Now we have very wide claps. You say, yeah, it's cool. It's very wide. But now if you want to process those two clap, you need to drag a bunch of plugin here and here. Now I grab again and I do a mini bus, which is a bus of just those two. And I click like clap stereo, feeding back on my low percussion. So again, now I have, oops,
Awesome.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I have
The routing is
a level for my two claps. And now I'm going to process with my clap bus, essentially that. So now I say, okay, great. So now I can say, okay, love the fact that I have extreme stereo. I want to make sure that I keep everything under, let's say, a K mono, and then I can do a low shelf, a cut, and effective both of them. So that's really quick. That's how I feel the Studio One allow me to work really fast without thinking technical, and the drag and drop is really cool. And again, automation, even in this case, touching, let's say, okay, awesome, love this. And what about if I'm able to, I want to do a sweep, something on EDM we do a lot, which is this. And then again, I touch option A. Now I want to do this to close. Right? So
very fast.
that's kind of like my workflow.
Yeah, that's great. Amazing.
Awesome,
Cool,
Mark. This is a question. I'd love to hear more from our friends there on the chat.
Yeah. Let's get to some questions, definitely. While I'm pulling some up here, how long would you say that you usually spend on a mix? I'm sure they're all
4
different.
hours.
But
4 hours.
4 hours.
4 hours usually is my average. It can be 3 hours and 30 minutes, 4 hours and 30 minutes. Usually what I do, I will always recommend, if you start mixing late into the day, don't make an executive decision at the end. Like, amazing, I'm gonna send to the label, the producer. Most likely in the morning, your brain will reset. It's equal to the gear get really hot. So you might have different opinion. I always take about like a day before the release of the song to have the client ears myself. So I show up in the morning, I literally take my iPhone and I write down notes really quick, how I feel. Now I'm the client, I'm listening this. So if you rush to send it because you're excited, you're going to do something that a lot of people do, especially people like in the chat, people that I know, which is you send the Dropbox link, you go in the morning, you listen, you don't like it, really quick, you replace it, you tell the guy, hey man, I sent the wrong link.
Right.
You're gonna say, right now. So don't do that. Just take the night, go back in the morning.
Yeah, with fresh ears. It'll help save time in the long run for sure.
For sure.
Okay, let's see. So let's do do you check for phase issues in every mix, and what technique do you use?
Yeah, so because I don't have the luxury to have all the separate layers when I'm mixing, sometimes producers make decision, especially on kick drum. On dance music, a lot of people, they like to use 2 or 3 layers of kick, create the top kick, the mid-range, and the bottom. And I do. I use X phase. Sorry, the screen is so big, I'm a little slower than normal. There we go. So I use X phase on kick. The way I go with X phase, it's by feeling. So I don't care what I'm seeing. I care what I'm feeling when I'm listening. So I do something that is not fun at all, which is this, right? Then what I do, I sweep through frequencies. You're gonna feel almost the notes start to change. There we go. The way I can describe when it's in phase for me is on low end and fast transient information. You feel the sound going from the side of the speakers outside of your ears will go in the center between your nose and the speakers, or your nose and the headphones. So the way I feel is I address phase. Now, if I have the luxury to work with layers, obviously I do manually, which is that's the phase. And if I have other transient and other layers, they're literally off, I'll just bring it up to just follow the same phase. But if I go and I need to use the tools, I use the X phase for that.
Very nice. Cool. Is that it's fairly similar in nature to the IBP, right? The Little Labs
Yeah,
IBP. Yeah.
exactly.
Phase rotation.
Right.
Awesome. Cool. So let's do what is the best way to get clarity between different sounds in the mix?
I think is, first of all, to go by priority. So you listen, again, you prep your own mix. You do leveling, which is something that not necessarily on this one, has been done already. But usually, first things as far as clarity is make sure the level they're right. One of the biggest mistakes that I find myself to do it, and sometimes you do like wake up, is you feel something is not bright enough because it's not loud enough. And hi-hat, hope and hi-hat have such a small range, right? When you say, wow, the hi-hat is not bright enough. Well, maybe it's not loud enough. So level will help you to have a starting point that you're not going to guess the relationship of different instruments. So that do first. Second one, work on a stereo bus, allow you to do the heavy lifting in a way that as a feeling, you get the tone that you want. Now to go separation, you go into the session and you work on individual stems to create separation. To me, for example, is to have a musical approach, which is naturally where the vocal is supposed to sit versus where the hi-hat's supposed to sit in a guitar. Now, if I want to force to be something different, most likely I'm going to get cloudy if I first try to respect the musicality and then using maybe sidechain compression as a tool. Sidechain compression is fantastic to do that, which is not necessary to do dance music pumping between kick and bass, but to take a vocal, and when the vocal hit, pull down the piano a little bit. When the piano hit, pull down the pad a little bit, and create each instrument to be kind of like a key to control other instruments. So I use a lot of sidechain. I wish we had 3-4 hours, and I'll show you guys what I do with sidechain, but I love it. And by the way, on Studio One was to me the biggest and the coolest upgrade was to be able to do sidechain on the fly. Can I show you that? You interested in
Please.
that?
Yeah.
So I do that a lot between kick, low, and high percussion bus. So, and you say, so why I sidechain between groups? I'll show you. So that's my high percussion. That's my low percussion. That's my kick. So to create separation, clarity, I want to try to use all my low percussion to pull down my high percussion. So this means every time there is a clap or a snare, if it's overlapping with the hats will down a little bit. To do that, very simple. I go and I pick compressor, external sidechain. Look how cool is this. So inside of the plugin, I say my kick bus will trigger compression as a key and my low percussion as well, right?
Wow.
Done.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say, well, I don't want to go too crazy with the kick. So the kick will trigger compression less, the low percussion more. What about if we take out the kick entirely? Now it's just a clap. What about if we take out and we just use the kick? Okay, so that's a creative use. And there's another point. What about if, ideally, so we go between the chorus, let's say we go, let's go drop into the verse, right? And we don't want to have the same level of sidechain between the drop and the verse. We want to make the drop tighter, where there's like a movement between kick and hat, for example, and more relaxed into the verse. Well, I can do that. So I can get, let's say we get into the verse, and now on the verse, option A, and we do no more, let's say we do less, I will say not no more, like less sidechain compression into the verse, and then go back into the chorus. Let's make it straight. So now we automate the sidechain. Now when we hit the verse, now it's less. So that's kind of like the way that I usually like to work with sidechain, and I do multiple sidechain. One of the most effective one, Mark, is lead vocal against background vocal. I love it because now you have, let's say, ad-libs, and then you have background vocal doubles and the lead. Now the lead on the chorus will sit a little bit in the back with the background vocal. So I do less sidechain between the lead and the background. Now when the lead is singing, the verse is more in front of the mix. Now I do heavier sidechain, where essentially every word of the lead will pull down the background vocal.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And you kind of get this relationship happening inside of your mix, you know?
Right. And also save a lot of time, because you can do this with automation, but it will take forever to automate everything, you know?
Right. That's great. Well, Luca, I know you have a session in about 16 minutes.
I do.
So there's one question that was the most upvoted question, and it might have to be a very short and concise answer, but the biggest question in the chat right now is, can you please explain how to get that polished, stacked stereo pop vocal sound?
Guy.
Right? It's like an hour-long conversation there.
Well, we should do one dedicated only to that. And also, this is a process vocal. To be fair, I should work with something that is completely dry and build a vocal mix, which is take a minute. I will say that if you take try a few of my ideas, it will work, especially sidechain relationship. One thing I want to point, let me take an opportunity for this, is EQing. There is a lot of confusion, and the way I approach EQing on vocal, that go back to the polished vocal that we talk about, is 2 stages of EQing on the vocal with 2 different approach. The first one is get rid of ringing. Most likely, you're going to have ringing on the vocal caused by microphone issues, decision that's been made by record engineer, whatever it is. So I do 2 stages of that. So it's going to be one, it's lifting, and one is cutting, and never use the same EQ to do that. You're not gonna see me use a Pro Q to do this and to do this. I'm not gonna do that. I like to use 2 different EQs. They have different personalities. So ring it first.
We were too greedy, childish.
So the question is, how you find ringing is the loudness point. If I have an average level and then one point I have a bump, that bump is a red flag. Something is ringing. So let's push the level a little bit so you can hear what's going on.
We were too greedy, childish.
Again, there, a little bit there.
We gave up.
They're all like lower mid range. So now what I do, I like to do dynamic. So
We were too greedy, childish and selfish to see we gave up. We were too greedy, childish and selfish to see we gave up.
now to see if this is affecting, I do this.
We were too greedy,
There we go.
childish
So what
and
I'm doing, I'm
selfish
trying
to
to get
see
rid
we
of that.
gave up. We were too greedy,
Now you say,
childish.
okay, great, but you lose a lot of energy. That's true. what about if I do this?
We were too greedy, childish and selfish to see we gave up love. We were too greedy, childish and selfish to see we gave up love. We were too
What about now the mid-range? So the mid-range, I want lift, I want to give some air.
We were too greedy, childish and selfish to see we gave up love. We were too greedy, childish and selfish to see we gave up love. We were
Always another point is, as far as clarity and polished sound, I changed my idea of low cut. I did low cut for like 15 years, and now I'm done. I like to use low shelf. Very simple reason. So if I do low cut, I'm compromising the energy of the track. Yes, I get cleaner.
We were
So
too greedy,
say I do,
childish and selfish to see we gave up love. We were too greedy, childish and selfish to see we gave
what about if I retain the same curve and I do with a shelf, would essentially work as a leveler. So in this way, I can achieve the same by leave a little bit of energy at the bottom. And I much prefer achieve the same result, leave a little bit of energy, the cut entirely. So that can be like kind of like a Q-wise, my approach. I'm not pushing with the Pro Q2, I'm cutting and I'm controlling. And if I have to treat verse and chorus in a different way, I most likely cut the waveform and I separate the track.
Awesome. Very cool.
That's it, Mark.
Yeah.
They're gonna fire me if I don't go to do the mix in a bit, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. That was a really, really great tip for such a short amount of time there. So very cool.
I love it. And Mark, love what Puremix is doing right now, what you guys are doing with the webinars.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm a
thank you very
fan.
much.
It's a way to get like also a sense of healing effect, because we get stuck in certain things and heard everybody's talking, and Andrew was amazing, and everyone
fun.
Fab
Yeah.
is doing great. So love it. So
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for all that you're doing. This is great. Yeah. And thank
Love
you for
it.
taking the
Love
time
it.
today. Very
Yeah.
cool. Well, guys, tomorrow, we're actually not doing anything tomorrow. It's Saturday. But Monday, we'll be back with Andrew Sheps. He's going to be interviewing Greg and Nina Woodford Wells. So that's going to be really fun. Greg's wife is a very accomplished songwriter, and that's going to be really, really interesting. Plus, Andrew knows how to make it really fun. So that's going to be great. So yeah, there's going to be more events. Check the site for updates. Make sure you go check out Studio DMI. That studio is beautiful, and they have a great walkthrough on the site. It's really cool, and all the plugins and everything. So, Luca, thank you so much. That was a blast.
Thank you, Mark. Take care,
All right,
guys.
guys.
Love
See
Pure
ya.
Mix. Bye.